Good evening and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'd like to call the council meeting to order. I apologize for the late start. We're still working a little bit with our new technology. First thing I'm going to ask, is there any agenda changes this evening?
Mr. Mayor, we would only ask under reports, year-end financial. We're going to delay that. We had auditors on site and just want to incorporate some of those changes that they've identified before presenting that report to you all. So we will put that on the agenda for next council meeting.
Okay. Any questions with that change, council? Well, we'll move on then. First thing I'm going to open up for is the public forum. Is there anybody here wishing to address the council this evening? That's not on the agenda, so. Seeing no movement from the gallery, we'll close the public forum, and I'm going to ask for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no discussion or questions, I would make motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Been a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move right on into new business. Item 1 is a presentation from the Halstead After Prom Committee. If you're here to represent that, please step to the podium and tell us your name and what
Hi.
you're hearing about it.
My name is Stephanie Schmill, and I am here to represent the Halstead After Prom Committee. And I am here to ask for a donation request to be used for our after prom. And what we're wanting to use that for is, since our kids were not able to participate in prom last year due to the COVID virus, we're trying to plan something big this year that, as far as we know, has not been done in years past. And what we're wanting to do is attempt to raise funds to send the kids to Six Flags in Texas. And what we're wanting to accomplish is hopefully to provide transportation, the admission into the park, and food while they're there. And this is in addition to the after prom that we always host, and that would be the prizes and raffles that we purchase then. And any contributions that could be made would be greatly appreciated, and it would help to have the kids have a memorable experience. Are there any questions or?
So this will be for both juniors and seniors, everybody who attends the prom? Will it be more like a senior trip, or?
We are hoping to do an after prom, and that includes the juniors and the seniors. And that's where the raffle prizes will be auctioned off there. The Six Flags, we are hoping to at least raise funds to at least take our seniors as of right now.
Well, I think the way that's set up, any funds that aren't used this year will be passed on to the seniors next year. So it takes a lot of work. My wife and I did that one year, and I tell you what, we have a full appreciation. I would make a motion to approve that donation for $500 to the after prom.
I second it.
Heard the motion and second to approve $500 for the after prom committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. That motion carries. And I just want to point out, thank you for coming this evening.
I appreciate the offer.
It was my fault that this item got agended over to this meeting. I just think that with the donation of public funds and the aspect of transparency, we should always have representation here when you're asking for those funds.
Oh,
So
I
thank you for being here.
completely agree, and I thank you, and I appreciate this sincerely.
But also with COVID, we understand you not being here.
Mass, we're good.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Little Arkansas River Drainage District, and I believe we have some gentlemen here to present this evening, and I'll let them have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be okay to slip this on?
Sure.
Thank you. My glasses fog up. My name is David Friesen. We're here again. I'm here with Mr. Kent Mayfield and Mr. San Nickel. As we expressed last time we were here, we three are the board of directors of the Little Arkansas River Drainage District. Due to the technical difficulties we had last time, a short portion of what I presented was lost to the public. With your indulgence, could I repeat that, about a minute of what I said?
You have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to say a little bit about the drainage district. Our drainage district was formed in 1952, and it was formed in response to a lot of flooding in the area. There was a good flood in 1944, and then you had the devastating flood in 1951, still talked about today. Some landowners along the river got organized, and following state statutes, they went and filled out a petition and went before the county commissioners at the time. And the county commissioners saw that that was all in order, and they then incorporated the drainage district. We are authorized by a number of pages of Kansas state statutes and bound by them as well. We're funded by a mill levy on the property of those within our district. And our district runs from the north end of Harvey County Park West all the way down to 60th Street, southeast of town, and it includes the city of Halstead. At that point, the Facebook feed picks me up, and we also had excellent coverage from the Halstead Independent. So I would like to turn this over to Mr. Mayfield and Mr. Nickel for our presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Since you guys know that we're looking to acquire some land here, we thought the best thing to do is kind of present at least some type of presentation of what we would like to have. And of course, you know, we discussed a little bit about our budget limitations and what we've been faced with the change and everything, and the loss of field. So this would be pretty much what we'd like to have.
Denise, can you see that?
Okay.
Come this way.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
And we all work together kind of on this, and this isn't permanent, of course. We're hoping this is kind of where we're going. We might go a little bit higher. We thought about having kind of just one main part of the building. We do want to have a bridge crane inside here, so we can go all the way through, and we have quite a bit of heavy equipment and specialized equipment to do what we do. Some of you are probably familiar seeing this with the big claw. We still are using some of the same equipment. We actually, just for kind of fun, we have San Nickel's Old International here, which we have used, and some of you might have seen this down on Main Street in the park. And we've used some of these vehicles, but these are really the main district vehicles. We do have a D7 dozer, that's 25 tons, the biggest dozer you can have legally on the street and be hauled around. So we've got to make sure that we can accommodate that weight crossing in here on our mains. We're a little concerned about that. We talked about having a nice thorough way through here, because we're going to have to unload that big piece of equipment. We do have a tractor with a backhoe, so we have quite a bit of equipment that needs some sheltering, and we need it pretty immediately. So we're hoping that after we acquire a few more funds, that we can actually acquire this maybe by 2022, 23. Until then, we'll probably have to settle for something a little bit more like this. That's what we're probably going to have right away. We hope to have this done by about 2020, 21, end of this year maybe, if possible, if we acquire the land. We probably won't have anything except for maybe electricity, no water yet, all gravel. This would be built to add on to this later. So we'd actually build this one side here. And we've kind of talked about this, and it'll change a little bit, but we want the open side to be toward the south. And we were also thinking about, this would probably be, let me grab this piece of paper here. We discussed with the city a little bit on which property we were gonna actually acquire. And we thought that we would probably end up getting this one. So this building is actually orientated that way. So this would actually be looking north.
So it's on the east side of the street.
Yes, this would be on the east side. I understand the water main runs on the west side. So I think that would be, it's the responsibility of the city to actually go underneath the road there. And so we'll have to deal with that. And then the curb cuts. If there was talk about having this corner, as district members, we kind of thought that might be advantageous for loading some of that equipment. So we could actually come in here and have an opening here, and they could cross through and then cross over around that curve.
You're talking about the property to the northwest corner.
Get to the north corner. Now, is that still available, the curve there? We talked about parceling some of that out.
On the east side of the curve, it would be, not on the west.
That's that radius portion of it though, right?
On the inside of the corner, on the inside of the corner.
But on the inside of the curve would suit our purposes pretty well.
And we'd like to have a fenced-in area, and of course, we don't need a lot. We talked about how much we're gonna parcel this out, and an acre is probably enough for us. I don't think, we might think in the future, maybe we'd wanna expand, but again, if you're allotting these out, we need to decide right away. But I think we could actually suffice with that. And with the first, having basically a loafing shed, the actual locked in one, probably wouldn't even have this, just for cost. We just have one door overhead, enough room to put all our cable, any kind of a heavy equipment that we need to have locked up. And then some of the heavier JCB, our tractor and the dozer and the actual winch truck, some of those can go inside that open side.
Oh.
And I just got a message that people are having trouble hearing you. Can we get up to the mic a little more perhaps?
We can field any questions if you guys have any, and I'm sure Sam can add. If you have any questions about more specifics on the construction, we've done some cost estimates, and a lot of it, we've been trying to avoid the concrete. As we spoke earlier, we'd have gravel in most of this area. The only area that we wouldn't have gravel would probably be the front bay of this, maybe about 25 foot, and then our office area and the bathroom, the little, wash-up area. And that would save us a lot of cost, because we want to be able to bring that dozer in and work on it, and Phil and them had actually rehauled that engine, overhauled the engine, and we're in the process of doing some cylinder work for the track tensioner. And so there's quite a bit of heavy work that needs to be done, so we're anticipating having that bridge crane go all the way through the whole shop and be able to acquire for some heavy duty lifting and moving around.
I would imagine one of the first things you would do is put your basic building and your perimeter fence up.
We probably won't even have the perimeter fence if we can go ahead and keep things secure and locked up, because nobody's gonna take the dozer anywhere. And we had a little vandalism on our tractor, but it was when it was at the site, and so it was there overnight, and we didn't have any cameras or security, and somebody came by and just shot out our window. And then just recently, we had somebody try to steal gas. So they got in our gas cap, tore off the gas cap, tore off the cap for our hydraulic fluid. So, it cost us several $100s just for that one little incident. Luckily, they didn't have much gas.
Well, a fence helps you, and it also helps our police department
Sure.
in helping go by the property and know that it's secure. I imagine you're talking about a budgeting issue for the expense of the fence. Have you come up with any idea on the cost of the fence?
I did get a budgetary quote today from Wichita Fence, and one shape of an acre is 200 feet by 218, so that comes to 850 feet. I said 950 feet and one gate, and he said budgetary of $15 a foot. That's 6 feet tall, commercial duty. Residential chain link fence is cheaper, but I didn't suspect you would want it or we would want it.
Barbed wire or anything? Or
No
just a
barbed
straight
wire.
fence?
No barbed wire.
Well, and right now with current steel prices, I don't envy your mission at all. That's a moving target. What's the footprint on your phase one building? What's the external dimensions on that?
About, including the loafing sheds, around 5,000 square foot, a little over that.
Just the first one, the first phase,
That would actually be most of that.
Okay.
This would be more like, 12, 1,300. So that
Right,
would be, yeah, we're not talking real big structure here at the beginning. And we might even actually, I don't know, I had some markers I could show you a little bit. We actually thought about maybe building this really pretty quite simple, more of a loafing shed with one end enclosed for security, we can lock. And then we build a separate structure over here, so we'd actually have a drive-through through the middle of the two buildings. So we might have two separate buildings on the side, but they would be pretty close together, and, built in similar style.
And then later connect the two.
Well, we're still kind of open. We thought maybe we could be open, and we built onto it. Again, you've got little structural things you gotta take in advance, if you're building a wall, and then you gotta have another wall, and whether the structure's built in for that. So we discussed whether we could either just build directly onto this, and then we'd have that bay door on the inside of this shop, so we'd have a separate security area. Or we talked about maybe just building completely separate, and depending upon our funding. If our funding is good enough to where we can get a little more elaborate, then we probably have that just separate. Because we're gonna need it, because we've got a dump truck coming we're gonna need, we have trailers, we have things that, even when Phil was around, was hard to secure and hard to, he had not the most efficient space, laid out, so, but it was, and it was much more space even what we want here, but it was more space than we really needed, and more maintenance than we need. So we're hoping this works out pretty good, and this is really just, it's almost more a little bit of a comic for you guys to realize, we just don't want you to expect that we're gonna have this right away. We're being realistic.
Right now, to put up that building, based on your budget, what would be the time frame?
We could have this done by the end of the summer, no problem, probably sooner.
Sorry?
By the end of the summer, unless we're faced with some flooding or something, it's gonna take our time to where we're doing emergency cleanup. But if we're not faced with anything like that, we've got the major stuff out of the way. We've got some log jams that need to be burnt. We have a log jam that's actually in the river between Highway 50 and Halstead. It's potentially very dangerous to come down and catch on a lot of stuff. So that's one of our jobs we want to get to. But as far as that goes, I think we can have, and this is small enough that we can probably locally have some, local contractors, somebody like Randy Pugh or somebody who could actually work with this. It's a small structure. This is small enough, we've all got enough experience, we can maybe do it ourselves. But for speed and getting it up and having it ready, we'd probably end up contracting locally to have this done, have it built, rather than having some Midwest manufacturer do it themselves.
Well, I have a recommendation. I'll put it out there for everybody to consider. It's pretty important that we have a building, we have the drainage district active in Halstead. We benefit by it very immensely. And I know that you guys work on a pretty tight budget. Fencing is an important issue. Keeping the property clean, secure is important. And based on my recommendation, I'd recommend that we donate that 1 acre of property to save them spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on the property where they're a taxing entity. We're going to pay the taxes on it anyway. So my recommendation, donate the property, take that savings on the property, help towards getting a fence around it. That's my recommendation.
Brad, can we do that without issue?
It's to another not-for-profit that serves a public purpose, so I'm gonna say, yeah, we probably can. I would double check that to make sure we don't create a problem for them as well, but,
Right.
Since it's not the private entity and it is for a public purpose that's statutorily created, probably so, yeah.
I've had the same thought, and I agree with you completely, Sam. But I would like to maybe wait to make that particular decision, possibly to let you research any intricacies of this issue, and maybe we can make that decision next meeting. But I wholeheartedly agree with you, Sam. Good call.
I would say let's make the motion to go forward on it, subject to any problems that Brad would develop.
I'd like to weigh in on this before we get too carried away. I'm perfectly happy with donating the ground. I am. The particular parcel that you guys expressed interest in, I think the council needs to visit about that a little bit before we promise that particular parcel. My concern is there's quite a bit of property that would be behind that parcel. And if we did happen to have a big business that needed a lot of room to come in here, we're gonna need to keep as much of that big parcel open as possible.
You're talking the north property to the curve and.
And everything from that to the east, to the back of LMI, that's a pretty good sized lot. So I think the council and Ethan can discuss the platting over there and see what we can come to as far as an agreement with where the actual parcel will be. But I would agree with donating the parcel to the drainage district.
Have you looked at the property on the west side? Is there a piece of ground better suited? I'm talking about for us giving them the property. Is there a better piece of property that would, as Dennis said, keep that larger property open and that would also work for you guys? You said that piece of property over by the asphalt plant, that's not available?
The very corner one, that's where, the storage, mini storage is. The one right next to it is the one we sold 2 years ago. That the pad, the owner has put the pad in but has not erected the building yet. Then the 2 1-acre lots to the south of those are still privately held. We're working on getting those back, but that will be I can't promise, and I don't know that Brad has, that we can give an estimated timeline of when we could maybe even see those coming back into city ownership. I mean, I don't know that I would feel comfortable saying that we could get those back by the end of this year. And so I don't think that fits with the drainage district's timeline. So conceivably, we have to go east of industrial.
And the property right there by the tower?
We could maybe split that up, but because of the cell tower lease, again, that's gonna put us into back and forth with the cell tower company on what we're doing there.
So we don't have 1 acre free and clear right in there, okay.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, and that's fine, we're not real picky. We looked at some property on the west side when we first started discussing this, and then we talked about the east side, and like I said, we did the rendering thinking that was on the east side, and that would be facing south, so you'd actually see this part of the building, and the gate would be opening over here. And we probably only have 1 curb cut and 1 opening for the gate and expense and all that. They would just circle around when they unloaded stuff.
And I'm perfectly okay with you guys being on the east side. I'd just like to hold you to the south end of that parcel that's there to.
I think as council, we're committed to supporting you. We just have to figure out the right location.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I
And we
agree.
want to be able to donate it.
We're not all gonna argue that. No, that's fine.
That was the thought I
What
had
I'm
last-
looking at here,
The thought I had at the last meeting.
I've got an extra couple.
since you mentioned it, the south portion might have that odd dog leg. That makes it a little less useful for us, but
Oh, with this back here?
yeah, with that corner cut out. But with the friendliness that you've expressed, I don't think we'd be choosers.
We certainly appreciate that.
I think the fence cost around there would be the same if that was squared in or squared
Yes,
out.
that would be a wash.
Maybe about 13.5.
And it's one of those things where that is the potential property I'm talking about.
What you're talking about.
And if you can look at it and if your building plans, you can make that work, that's a pretty easy sell for both sides, I think, if that would be acceptable to you guys.
Yeah. You agree? Dave?
So we could go forward with that piece of property if that's acceptable, then make a motion to go forward.
I think as far as the piece of property, really, guys, if we get one that's of the proper size, the shapes, if we can put the building in and get around it, you know, and I think we will be able to there. Dog leg is kind of a problem, but
We need to be able to turn a semi around.
Do you have the dimensions on that lot in front of you, Ethan?
It would be, the lot as that's shown on there is much bigger than what they need. That's almost 2.5 acres.
Okay.
So we need to split that, and my recommendation would be either a motion for staff and legal staff to continue working on it, because we kind of need the direct legal before we would make a formal motion to donate. We're in the process with the county now of getting all those lots combined into one, so then we can parcel it to suit as opposed to trying to subdivide a already small lot.
So then I would make a motion for you to work on the dimensional properties and to go forward with this.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Well, we certainly thank your attention and being able to do
thank
that.
you.
And thank you for the offer on the property, and we hope that works out. And as soon as you guys know exactly the parcel that we'll have, we'll take a look at it, and our funding's ready to go, so.
Well,
Leave your money here.
We want to get this all in writing and laid out first. But thank you very much, we appreciate it.
and I think once we have the real dimensions on that lot, that dogleg may not seem like such a big deal.
We may be able to favor a strong 1 acre to help offset that corner.
That would be helpful.
We'll get to work on this and we'll put together a comprehensive plan and get it back to you guys, so. Council, we've got the motion and the second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you guys on this.
Guys.
Thank you, council.
Thank you for the
you.
professional presentation.
We want to give you something.
Well, we want to keep our city safe from water too, so. Next item on the agenda is consideration of an EMS vehicle purchase. And we've got Andy here this evening to address the council, so I'll invite him to the podium.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, council persons. I am here this evening to actually discuss a couple items. First one is replacement of the 2010 F-150 that we acquired from the police department in 2014. I know you've got my short typed analysis unit, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time just going over every detail with you. Just going to touch a few things here since part of the public who's watching probably hasn't seen this. This initially was on our replacement plan several years ago. I made the decision to pull it off the plan to provide equipment needs for my EMS staff and for the public as far as medical equipment and so forth. With the influx of the COVID-19 and the Sparks funding, we were able to, basically, I'm going to have to revamp my entire capital improvement plan because a lot of the stuff on that plan got all purchased at once with the Sparks funding. We've got most of our units all identicaled up at this point, which was going to take about 7 years to do. So we came back up to replace the 2010 vehicle, which is the white Ford with the topper that I currently am driving. I did randomly pull a spec sheet, went through, built it. I did send it out to 5 dealerships. You guys have just the quote numbers they sent back to me. I do have the actual quotes here if anybody wants to see those. They jumped all over the board in the process of getting everything built. I also started contacting the upfitters, so I would have prices of emergency equipment and so forth as well to put in. In the process of doing that, I got 2 bids on equipment installs that included the equipment. One did not include graphics, the other one did. In that process, Superior Emergency Vehicle did advise me that they try to keep a vehicle built for the demo to go to shows and various types of things. He actually had 3 of them. He had a 2020 Dodge Durango, I believe, a 21 Ford, what they call a utility. It was a mix between an Explorer Expedition. It's an off-market public safety vehicle. And then the red Tahoe. The Dodge and the Ford, neither one were 4-wheel drive because they were police package only. The Tahoe was the 4-wheel drive one. With that, he did get a hold of me late Friday night. If I go with that one, it'll probably be mid-March before he gets his next one in because he sold the one he has in-house Friday. It got picked up by another department. He tries to keep one built to, like I said, go out. So he's already got the chassis on the way. He just does not have it yet. And the $48,447.76 price is completed, turnkey, done, radio, lights, the moderate graphics package, I'm just looking, it's a red vehicle, I'm just looking at some plain white striping and lettering, because if we decide that we want to start getting fancy, that's when the price shifts on that. With that, the price on that exact vehicle may go down just a bit, because he has that demo spec just like the Andover Fire Chiefs, which had some special cabinetry and stuff in it. He goes, I will have you look at cabinets. If there's stuff you want taken out, things will start to come down. Because he had it pretty much loaded for a demo unit for shows. So there is stuff in there that will come out, but I can't tell you how much right now because I haven't seen exactly what it is. I'm supposed to go see Chief Russell in Andover and look at the twin to that vehicle.
So as it reads, it'd be a not to exceed 48,447 and possibly less.
Correct, sir.
So if we're gonna spend that kind of money, we want you to have what you need. So we don't wanna poor boy it. We don't wanna go over extravagant either, but you know what you need, and we appreciate your patience waiting this long.
The two specific things I looked at were the heated mirrors, and can I hit the button to start it when the pager goes off at 3 in the morning while I'm getting dressed, it can start defrosting.
You bet.
Those were the only two specific things I was looking for. And unfortunately, when you ask dealerships about it, oh, that's a electronics upkick. That's going to an XLT version, or I'm like, I want two things. That's it. But I've learned that's hard to do. And this vehicle here, knock on wood, will outdo the rest of my time here, so. And I still have several years, so it's not going to be a short-lived vehicle. I believe I got about 13 years is what I've collected.
I was wondering what the number was, Andy.
I have one in kindergarten. I will move out when he graduates. I have to have the insurance.
Well, this looks like a budgeted item, a well-planned item. I appreciate all the work you put in to get competitive bids. If there are no further questions, I would make the motion to approve the purchase of the 2021 Tahoe from Superior with an amount not to exceed $48,447. And we'll round it up, $448.
Second.
No, I just have another question.
Yes, sir.
Are there any needs currently that your current vehicle is not meeting? Are there functions that you need to be able to do that your vehicle isn't allowing you to?
Remote start, heated mirrors, and it's four-wheel drive.
Well, and I went with the SUV over the truck because we have gone into some pasture field areas and brought people out to an ambulance where an ambulance doesn't belong. And sticking somebody in the back of a truck without any climate control was an issue, which is why I went with a little bigger SUV. I'm going to cut part of them cabinets out where we can at least slide somebody on a mega mover in the back to get them moved out to it and still have it climate controlled for a patient safety issue. I got some room in the back for staff to work to get them out to the medic unit.
Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the towing capacity will also be greater with the SUV than what you currently have with the F-150.
Yes, it's an up GBW tow.
The biggest thing you tow is that command trailer, right?
Pretty much. I did move the Region's one big command trailer during trappers at one time, and I got to town and said we had to switch vehicles.
Okay, the only other question I have is what's planned for your old truck?
One, I'll check with any other city department, or there is the Purple Wave option. When I was getting bids and I asked Unruh, Clark Clerk, they gave me the one equipment bid. They asked what we were doing with the old truck. Evidently Burton Fire has got an old Dodge they use just to haul their generator. And they were inquiring, and they wouldn't give me a commitment price, but Clark goes, I have to talk to a fire board, but we would probably give 5,000 or 6,000 for your truck just to replace the Dodge, but because their Dodge, I believe, is an 80-something.
Pursue that.
Okay, sounds good to me. Well, I believe we have the motion and we did get a second, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations on your new vehicle, Andy. Use it well. But don't go anywhere, because next item on the agenda is discussion of future EMS vehicle fleet.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're starting to spend quite a bit of funds on a medic unit that only gets used about, I'll say fully for 2 months out of the year during football season. We have had times where I believe we've actually used it twice. Most of the time when we get to a third or fourth out EMS call, it's not a vehicle issue anymore, it's a staffing issue at that point. George can attest, I've been to George's house and I had to wait on once to get in. We had vehicles out where I won't take a medic unit by myself without having a second certified person just to use equipment, because that gives a very false sense of security to the people. Okay, there's an ambulance here, why aren't you going? I can only legally go if I have 2 fully certified people. We're looking at coming into licensing, and I'm looking at downscaling back to the 2 ambulances with what we have ran for several years. I want to drop that 3rd ambulance and bring in what would be a rescue response vehicle, something similar to what like maintenance's box trucks are that we'll have equipment in. It will also keep us from taking fire trucks on everything. This truck would also move some of the rescue response stuff. It would not completely eliminate the fire side. If we're on an accident on the highway or something, we still have to have a water suppression capacity, plus the bigger truck set up to protect us so nobody goes into the accident scene and hits it. Right now, and I have visited with Doug and Jim on this, so this isn't a surprise to them. We've had lengthy discussion. Right now, when we go out, fire takes one of the squads. They have a lot more aggressive tire on it. We're running a lot of asphalt calls with it. This time of year, they have to make sure they start the pump before they go out. We did have one time where a pump didn't get started. We were on scene for a while. We had 5 valves get cracked that had to be replaced in various plumbing areas just because they froze. If you don't have the valve just right while it's on recirculate, Doug had the other day, him and Bobby had to dump the entire foam system because the water recirculated to the foam tank. And it had to be dumped and refilled because the water just didn't go where it was supposed to. And we're trying to start eliminating some of this issue where we're not taking a $200,000, $250,000 fire truck out on medical calls anymore. What I'm currently pursuing is a cab chassis that will fall, the rough numbers I got will be around $35,000 because it's going to be just a basic 350 dual type vehicle, and then a Napa-hide truck with the body, and that would be having that center area with the cover on it and a slide tray in that center area with LED lighting already and all the cabinets. That bid's already came in at 16,000 some numbers. I don't know, have the exact number. It was just under 17, but we'll be able to do, I believe, this entire project at 55 or less.
Which ambulance are you looking at getting rid of, Andy?
It would be Medic 21.
Is that one of the Fords or is that the Chevrolet?
That will be one of the Fords. It was the first generation V10. It's the one where the rear end and transmission don't get quite synced with the motor, and it sounds like you're going to blow the thing up before it shifts. Runs fine, but
So it sounds like a Ford?
yeah.
I know we've had to do some work on that Duramax over the years, and how dependable has it been lately?
It's been very dependable. When we sweated out the Duramax when we thought we blew the turbo. It turned out that it was a plastic clamp that broke that let the hose blow off.
Boy.
We paid for a lot of labor to get somewhere and put a new clamp in. That's what it boiled down to. The Duramax, that vehicle there, I looked at it earlier, that truck's only got like 19,000 on it.
Okay.
So it's on, that box is on its third chassis. Now, ambulance-wise, with our 3 ambulances, in 2023, 2024, we would be slated on rotating. If we drop to 2 and we keep on our rotation where both of them are running all the time, we follow our maintenance plan the way we have been doing, it will probably be 26 before we have to replace an ambulance, barring something catastrophic happening.
Okay.
So what you really need here is just a motion to proceed to,
Yes, I didn't want to start doing a lot of research, a lot of building, and throw a surprise at you. I want to keep you guys in the loop of what's going on. Ethan and I visited. He remembers that when we took on Sedgwick, we never intended to actually put 3 licensed ambulances on, but the one was good and it cost us an extra $40 a year to license. Well, maintenance, and I totally forgot about the uptick in the malpractice insurance of putting a 3rd truck on, and some of those little things I didn't think about have crept up a little bit, but Ethan and I we visited, we wanted to get you guys in the loop, and I wanted to keep moving because licensing expires in April, and I wanted to be able to spend time and research everything on out and get it back to you before I don't want to relicense something and then 2 weeks later say we wasted $40 buying a state license if we don't need to.
So Ethan, you just need a consensus, right?
Yeah, either
Just to move
consensus
forward.
or a motion, either one to move forward. As Andy said, it's just kind of, we believe this is a better use of funds than trying to keep a 3rd truck, because ambulances minimum cost us at least $100,000, whether we're retroing them, and they're much, much more if we're buying them new, so.
What will you do with the one you're taking off licensure?
I will probably use Jim as my contact person, but the company he used to buy the used fire trucks from, because I'm not going to send it, I'll do whatever you guys tell me I want to do with it. My preference would be we don't send it to Purple Wave because it's still too good of a truck to go that route. I want to pull the equipment, the radio off, leave the oldest cot in it. I'm going to get a hold of Brindle Mountain or the ambulance trade website, spec it out. I will also call Kyle over at Osage because there are ambulances that they buy just to get the box back off, and they would ditch the cabin chassis and they would retrofit the box to a different ambulance to someone else. I would check with them because they built the box. They have the specs on it.
this is a big open question, and I don't expect you to have the answer, but maybe you do. If that was to be sold as a viable ambulance, what would you estimate the value of that to be? And if you don't know.
I do not know.
Okay, that's fine. Sounds like you've done a lot of work, and one thing that I'm really impressed with is that you and Jim have worked together on this to get the best decision made for the city of Halstead. Thank you.
Well, and the reason, like I said, the reason we went with, those boxes, they have that open center walk area. We went ahead and did the spec with the slide tray, the lights, and the cover. So should we decide to put the extrication equipment on there, it can all be on the slide tray to come out. I mean, we pre-planned the bid out together, so.
That slide tray does raise you up about 6 inches in that box.
Well, and I think like you've already pointed out, having 3 ambulances on hand here really doesn't make sense because we don't have the personnel to staff those anyway. And I rely on your opinion to streamline your department, so.
I will honestly say I spent several evenings listening to various calls going, do I want to make this decision or not? I mean, at some point I'll probably regret it, but then I'll also regret every year I do budget for, it'd be a no-win. And just so you know, our intent would be, if we do move forward during football season, the rescue squad unit would go up to the Halstead game. And our on-duty 911 truck, if they did get a transport, would go to that one, while the other ambulance was in Sedgwick. We did pre-plan that out also.
So I think the consensus is to continue moving forward.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you want a motion on that, Ethan, or are you good?
I think consensus.
I think consensus is
fine.
fine for this.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank
after
you,
it, Andy.
ladies and gentlemen.
That concludes the new business section of our agenda. We do have an executive session on the agenda tonight, and I'll entertain that motion now. As soon as Ethan's done writing it.
Accurate time.
Everything. I'd make a motion that the Halstead City Council recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss contract negotiations pursuant to consultation with attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, exception KSA 75-4319B2, to include governing body, city manager, city attorney. Open meeting to reconvene at 8:05.
Second.
Have the motion and second to move into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Motion carries. We are in executive session. We are back from our executive session. Is there any action to be taken as a result of? Seeing no movement from the council, we'll move on our agenda. Next item is reports. And governing body is first on the list tonight. I'll start with you, Denise.
Nothing, sir, other than I'm happy to be back.
Good to have you back. Sam?
Nothing from me.
Mike?
I'm good.
No, sir.
Ed?
I have nothing, sir.
Well, the council's being pretty quiet tonight, so we'll move on to Ethan. He's always got something to say.
Mr. Mayor, council, department activities have included, police have had 32 calls for service, 6 criminal cases, and 23 traffic stops. Police staff are also currently reviewing actions for body cameras and car cameras. Fire report has had 5 calls for service. Their staff continue working on apparatus checks and maintenance and assisting EMS. EMS is at 32 calls for the year, with currently 2/3 of calls being in the Halstead response area and 1/3 in the Sedgwick area. EMS staff that had volunteered for the COVID vaccine have received their second booster immunizations, and skills training is currently underway utilizing the sim mannequin for all staff. Wedgewood Golf Course has been working on debris and tree cleanup around the pond area and continue with equipment maintenance and repair. Staff are also doing membership drives and continue to schedule tournaments for the spring and summer. Public Works continued tree removal along the levee, specifically south of 36th Street on the west side and north of 2nd and McNair on the west side. Staff also met with MKEC for their follow-up visit to 204 Main Street, of which the city is still awaiting the engineer's final report. Public Works staff also assisted USD 440 with the location of a water leak, removed a gas service and extended another gas service, performed 9 locates, and began working on pothole repairs around the city. City Superintendent Adams continues working primarily on the AMI system and outstanding issues occurring with the system as far as just reads being sent into the system. Administration staff were busy with the auditors who were on site last week for their field visit, and then continuing our transition into the new year's in terms of permitting, licensing, and records. I've participated in meetings with Harvey County Council of Governments and Kansas Municipal Gas Agency, and then discussions with Harvey County EDC and a local business about some potential expansions, and the Kansas Department of Agriculture's Division of Water Resources on updated floodplain mapping of the area. Also consulted with the city attorney on ongoing projects we have on the legal side of things, and then the contracted engineers we have on the scope of work for both development of the Powers property, wastewater treatment plant evaluation, and 204 Main Street. All of those projects are still ongoing, and we're waiting on the proposals or final work to be produced by the engineers at this point. And that is all I have for this evening, unless there's any questions.
That's all you had?
Council, no additional questions for Ethan? Well, if that's the case, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion and the second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, council. Thank you, Halstead.